end up in places that are good. But we got some work to do, obviously.
Typically, in year 2 of your system, where do you see jumps from the players?
It should be exponential year to year. Looking at the last place I was at, really year 3 was when I think we won 12 year 3. I forgot what year 2 was, to be honest with you. I think that was COVID. But it wasn't a very good year that year for a lot of teams. But whatever. But typically when you see, it's a little bit different because we're not dealing with the exact same people. When you talk about quarterback play, I'm talking about like a quarterback that's been here for 2 or 3 years, right? We're not dealing with that. So, but other players, there should be some familiar stuff. And, you should be able to play faster. That's the biggest thing.
Cam Ward.
Coach, we obviously got to see a little bit of the wide receivers today, and a pair of freshman wide receivers stand out. What do you see from Nycar and JoJo Trey so far?
Yeah, they can run, and their body control is what you think. Now, like everything, whenever you're new, you're not playing instinctive like you can play until you start learning things in a way that everything becomes second nature. But their skill set is what you want to do.
Xavier Restrepo from the opposite end. He had the exceptional catch today from Cam, but it was beautiful. His progression each year, what you expect this year.
He's as constant as you get, week in, day in, game in. I've preached to some other guys too that the best players I've been around have been the same player every day. And that's probably the biggest compliment I can give a player, and I can give Strep that he's the same every day. Like that play he made today, but he makes a play like that almost every day. And so, he's just very consistent in his work ethic, consistent in his effort. He understands football. He plays hard. He really plays hard. We don't have everybody playing hard, but he plays hard. It's a good example.
Shannon, you bring a guy in, he immediately goes to number 1 on the depth chart. That's not the easiest thing in the world in terms of always with chemistry and things like that. How are these guys responding to Cam Ward's attempts at emerging as a leader on this team?
I think that's growth. It takes time, right? That doesn't happen overnight. That's why you got 15 spring practices and a lot of other player-led practices. But ultimately, if you're good at what you do, typically locker rooms accept you pretty quickly, right? And so there's good competition, though. We want to practice 2 days. And so the quarterback room is talented. There's some talented guys there. So, it's fun to watch those guys and look. It's our job as coaches is to make rooms uncomfortable, right? And more rooms need to get really uncomfortable because you're only going to grow if you're uncomfortable. And so if somebody's not pushing you, you're probably not going to reach your potential. So
you have 4 guys with experience at the college level.
Yeah.
In your quarterback room, right? Did you have to change at all how you divvy up reps this spring compared to other springs?
Yeah, good. That's a really good question. I don't think I've been through a spring where you've repped that number of quarterbacks. It's hard in the spring because you have X number of reps a day, and divvying those reps up where people can get in a groove and really show what they're made of is difficult. Because typically you rep 2, maybe 3, right? And so we're repping more than that, and so it's a little bit challenging rep-wise, but look, it's a good problem to have. I'd rather have that problem than the other problem, right?
Coach Reese Hockenbarger looks pretty good too.
Yeah, talented kid.
Talk about him. He also seems kind of intense.
Yeah, look, competitor, man, and he's got a live arm. He's played a lot of football too. Football IQ very high, which allows those 2 guys to incorporate into the offense quickly, right? They play a lot of football, and so their learning curve is not very steep. But yeah, very talented kid, extreme competitor, right? Very serious about playing football, which I like guys like that.
Coach, what are you asking from sophomore receivers Ray and Robbie as they return for them to take a next step this season?
What am I doing?
What are you asking from them to take that next step as
Play hard
sophomores?
and get better, right? Play hard, get better. Look, this is where in the spring and in the summer is where you earn reps, right? And look, this is the deal. They know that getting reps is not easy because we have a 1,000-yard receiver that plays the position that they play, right? And so now we can do other things to get people on the field. with multiple guys at that position. But ultimately, they got to raise their level. It's no different than what I said in the quarterback room. I mean, look, that room's talented, right? So you better compete. You know, if you don't compete, then you ain't gonna get no food. You ain't eating, right? And so those guys compete though. Ray had a really good day today. Made a couple really good catches. His consistency's high too. He's the same kid every day too. And we got to keep in mind with him too that he was a true freshman last year. You know, so there's some bumps you take as true freshmen through the course. You know, older kids play better. General rule of thumb.
What type of boost can a healthy and confident Elijah Arroyo?
Huge. What else you want? I mean, if he's healthy, he's a dude.
Well, what are you seeing from the rest of that tight end room as well?
I mean, that tight end room is a lot like we talked about. I mean, it's a lot of competition in that room. You know, and Riley played a lot of football last year as a true freshman. That's hard. You know, and everybody can be critical of guys when they're freshmen playing at this level. I thought he did a really good job last year, but his ceiling is very, very high. And having a guy like Elijah that is an older guy that can kind of be the post of that group, right, is huge. Now, Cam's not really factoring in right now, but we know that how solid that kid can play, right? And then the young kid, Lofton, I mean, he's pretty good too, you know? So that room's pretty talented. And so we're excited about that room for sure. Maybe y'all won't be asking me this year about getting the ball with the tight end. Yeah. I mean, organically, he will be. I mean, there was a couple times today that he scrambled, and you know, you could see that he could get 15, 20 or so yards. The biggest deal with me is the scrambling and keeping your eyes down the field and throw, right? Just extending plays. And that's really where the game is played today, because D linemen are so good, coverages are so complex that you're going to have, if you have 80 snaps a game and you throw it 50, there's probably going to be 10 snaps a game where everybody's covered or protection breaks down, right? You'd like for those 10 plays not to be just something that kills you. Does that make sense? And so ultimately, I do think that he has the ability to get out of trouble and save plays, which to me is liberating when you call plays, because you really don't think about like, oh, they could do this or they could do that. So I mean, if we get in the worst case scenario, he could probably save it, right? So
you made a big deal too just about fumbles within the pass at Boston.
Yeah.
You picked up on video that
Well, I mean, focus really. I mean, yeah, I watched all of them, so I know, you know, and so I know that, you know, that was one of the red flags coming in. But ultimately, if you watch all of them, which I have, it's pretty clear that it really isn't a ball security issue as much as a focus issue. If I should say that, but he knows. Put it that way.
So Shannon, when you went back after last year and reviewed the entire body of work, what did you walk away from when you looked at it, and what can be different this year?
You know, really, I look at things in a different way. It's not a different way than anybody looks, but my year-to-year comparison is pretty clear about what we did good and very clear about what we did bad, right? We took huge jumps in a lot of categories. I think it was like 100 or 99 to 22 in yards per play, which is probably the biggest jump I've ever had in a year. And a lot of the rushing per game was in the 30s, I think mid-30s. Passing was mid-30s. Offense, we were hovering around 30 or 25, right? From like 80 or whatever. So huge jumps in a lot of things. Turnovers were glaring, right? Turnovers were glaring. Not only were they glaring when they happened. You know, so the two situations that we didn't get better in, it may probably almost stayed the same or maybe went down a couple notches, was turnovers and red zone offense. But they kind of go together, because if you look at red zone offense, I mean, we got down there about top 35 in the nation 50 or 60 times, right? the teams that were in the top 10 in the nation, you can tell I studied this a lot, but the teams that are top 10 in the nation, right? There's one clear thing they didn't do is they didn't turn it over down. We turned it over 7 times down, 2 times on the 1 yard line, right? And we turned it over a couple of times right before that. And so what that does is take points off the scoreboard. Not only does it like crush your morale and all the rest, right? It takes points off the scoreboard. And so ultimately we have to do a better job of protecting the football. If we do a better job of protecting the football last year, then we're probably better than like in every category we go up. But that was the one thing that was just glaring. You know, I mean, everybody knows it. I don't have to sit here and say it, but we have to protect the football. You know, we got to be aggressive, but as a quarterback, you got to know when to be aggressive. You know.
Coach, I
Last
saw
question.
Luis or Crystal playing left guard. How is he doing?
He's doing good. He's doing good. Do what now?
Anything you can say about him?
Tough kid. I mean, a really tough kid. I mean, you know, what's he here for a little over a year now, right? And so, a kid, I feel comfortable putting him in there and playing. You know, he knows everything. I mean, he can play some football too.
Thanks, Coach.
All right, let's go.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it, guys. Thank you.
That happens about every day. So.
Yeah, I just.
It was funny. I was really gonna have to like the word. I was like, all right, well, so that's what we have to do.
I'm not joking. I'm not joking.